Yes, Alan, you don't need to remind me. I know how serious this is. Look, just because we got promoted in our first season, won the cup in our second season, doesn't mean we're immune from the sack because defeat today and we're going to be bottom of the table. So check out this little run of league form since we saw you last. 6 games, 1.5 defeats. We're playing bottom of the table Mura today. They've already beaten us 3-0 this season. If they beat us again, we will take over at bottom of the table. And the next 4 games have all got defeat written on them as well. We've got top of the table Tabel Shoshana, then back-to-back games against Olympia and Maribor, the 2 biggest and best resource clubs in the country, before it's derby day against Domjala, and wouldn't they like to put another nail in my coffin? And isn't this all a far cry from the last episode where we were beating Lokomotiv Plovdiv 3-1? In the away leg out in Sofia, our opponent struck back, but a goal by Gregorine and a hat-trick from Gajek put us 7-2 up on aggregate, surely an unassailable lead. Or so you'd think, as it became 7-3, and then 7-4, and I'll be brutally honest, at 7-5 I was really starting to panic. When Luka Gajic made it 8-5, I thought we were home and hosed. But Plovdiv weren't done and they pulled it back to 8-6. Unfortunately, that was the end of the scoring as it finished 5-5 on the night and 8-6 to us on aggregate. This led to us qualifying for the Conference League proper, and we were awarded £2.5 million that I did not see coming. And it meant that our little dobbers would be mixing it with some of Europe's elite such as Frankfurt and Monaco. And it all went to Nom's head a little bit as he started comparing Gajic to Robert Lewandowski. But unfortunately, we've dragged our poor league form into the Conference League too. We took on a side from Finland and took the lead. But we eventually succumbed 3-1 in a game that I thought would be winnable and could have made us yet more money. And next we took on Hajduk Split in a game at home at the National Stadium. Again, I thought we could get a point, but I grossly misjudged that situation. On this occasion, we went down 4-1. And astonishingly, this leaves us down in 34th place in a 36-team group. But honestly, things in Europe have been peachy compared to how they've been going in the league. Straight after the Plovdiv result in the last episode, we drew 1-1 in the derby with Domjala. Before that, 5-5 result out in Bulgaria. And since then, Simon and Garfunkel have been singing Hello Darkness, My Old Friend on a continuous loop as we lost 2-1 to Champions Copper, 5-1 to Maribor, 3-0 to Bravo, then it was 3-1 against Olympia, 2-1 against Triglav, and today we're taking on Mura, and if we lose this game, we're going to be finishing today's episode rock bottom of the table. And yet off the field, things have never looked better. We have the best part of £3 million in our bank account. Games against Frankfurt and Monaco probably aren't winnable, but we've still got a chance of picking up another win in Europe, which would give us another £400,000 or so. We have got the opportunity to storm into the boardroom and ask for new training facilities, new youth facilities, upgrades in the junior coaching and the youth recruitment again, and we still haven't seen some of the improvements we've already had agreed come to fruition yet. We've got the money in the bank to finally develop the facilities that would help us bring through some youth players, because the ones we've got so far, honestly, are not cutting it, but I fear we could be out of a job before we get chance to ask for these facility improvements. So we've not just sat back and accepted all of these defeats, we've experimented tactically. We tried a 4-4-2 and a back 5, none of which helped us. We're going to stick with the consistency of the 4-3-3 today, although we are going to try and pep it up a little. We're going to ask both of our fullbacks to be far more adventurous and get forward. And we're going to change slightly what we're doing out wide with the addition of an advanced playmaker to try and give us an extra bit of creativity. Of the fullbacks that are going to be getting forward, one of them is not going to be Ivan Makovets, who is without doubt the best of our defenders, I think. But he is still a want-away player, unhappy that we wouldn't let him go on the transfer list in his pursuit to join a club that can challenge for the title. Turns out he was a little bit of a prophet when he said he could never challenge for a title with Dob, And since then, he's missed 3 training sessions. He's upsetting the camp, quite frankly, and his form is absolutely wretched, averaging, in the low 6s over the last 8 games or so, whereas earlier in the season, he was regularly getting in the mid-7s. So today, we're going to play young Mateusz Krishnic, who is absolutely not as good as Makovet, but he's not unhappy, and he's meant to have a little bit of potential because it says he could be a decent top division player in the future. I've not seen anything to suggest that that's likely to be the case. We keep giving him little spells of games to try and develop him, and he never puts in decent performances, but we're going to give him the nod today just because he's not causing disruption within the camp. Otherwise, it's a pretty familiar lineup. The only other change we're making is at centre-half, where we just cannot find a partner for Mitrovic. The man that we are waiting on, the man that we are pinning our hopes on, is Damian Beshak, who unfortunately has picked up a little bit of an injury at the moment, but should only be out for a couple of weeks. He's doing all right in training. He's got this very, very squiffy personality, but he's the one that we're waiting to turn 17 in mid-November, only about 3 weeks away, so should coincide with when he's returning to fitness. And he's our last chance, really, to find a youth player that might be able to play at centre-half for us, because certainly Rockschöner has not been the man. He's training absolutely deliciously. Does he couple that with good performances out on the pitch? He absolutely does not. Only slightly better, should I even say slightly better? Do I mean only less worse? Is Matthias Schalaman. Again, he's back to performing okay in training. He'll follow this up with a month where he's all got downward arrows again. But his performances, again, are just ropey. He's averaging 6.5. We cannot have people getting in the low 6s when we're on this run of form. So we've turned instead to Gaspar Petek. Now we know what we get with Gaspar Petek, and that's a 6.3, but that's going to be significantly better than Schöner and Schalaman have been giving us recently. So we're going to go with him today. He's at least a little bit more experienced, although what am I thinking? He's not going to play well. We just don't have any centre-halves. When we experimented with that back 5, by the way, it was young Kautic that we moved into central defence to see whether he might be able to help shore things up a little bit. He was the worst performing of the 3 defenders, but look at him in training. He is a sight to behold and is now operating at a 2nd tier level. We need to continue his development because the youngsters that are coming through that look like they might be able to play a significant role in the first team, they really are few and far between. A player whose development really has stalled is Denis Valencic. He's not scored a goal for us this season. He got 3 in his breakthrough season last campaign. Every time he comes on, he looks awful. He's 6'3", but will never win an aerial duel. He looks really slow and laboured all around the pitch, although doesn't mention anything about pace being a particular problem with him. He just looks incredibly lethargic, never looks dangerous. I'll be brutally honest with you, we are struggling all over the pitch. And today, we take on a Mura side who are hungry to climb off the bottom of the table. Mura hail from Murska Soboto and play in a 4,500 capacity stadium. They've only ever won the top flight once, but that was as recently as 2021. And just a year earlier, they were winning the 2nd of 2 cups. So this is a club on the up and seemingly not one you'd expect to find at the bottom of the table. They finished 7th last campaign and qualified for Europe the season before. And in Kai Sippot, they have a player who ran riot against us with a hat-trick earlier in the season, as well as missing a penalty. They've acquired danger man Marco Brest from relegated Alumini, and they'll be looking for victory this afternoon as Dob take on Mura. As you would expect, morale around the camp is pretty low. I wouldn't say I'm panicking yet, but I'm certainly concerned, and it's largely because of the 4 games that we've got coming after this. If we don't win today, I can't see us picking up wins in any of those 4 either, and we could be in real trouble. And what a shame it would be after all of the good work we've done so far, and now that we've finally got a bank balance that might allow us to build the facilities, to develop the youth players, to make some real progress, Well, if we got sacked before we were allowed to see the job through, be a little bit of a travesty, and we'd be looking for a new save. But that's how fragile FM is. And when you're playing with such hard restrictions, I guess it's inevitable that you're going to have spells where you are going to be up against it. It's just whether we have the tactical nous to dig ourselves out of the hole that we're in. Experience tells us that we probably do not, but you never know. We've surprised people before. We'll see if we can do it again, and we're going to be making some big decisions after this game. I guess if we lose yet again, we might need to tear up the 4-3-3 and look for a different way of playing, because we can't just stick with it when we're getting loss after loss on our CV. We have got Mura coming forward. They've had possession of the ball for an awfully long time. There's the danger man we highlighted, Teapot to his friends. And Brest, the other player we highlighted, is now over on the corner. Mitrovic heads it away. We rely on him at the back because we are struggling to find anyone that can just fill in at centre-back. Never mind play there successfully. We've had, 21 minutes. We've only had one shot so far. It's not looked like a good start to a game against a team who is only in marginally better form than us. But we've got the ball to Gajic. That's what we're up against now. Headers from the edge of the box being our first effort on target. As Adam smacks it up the field, we head the ball down. It's gone straight to our opponents. Kasnic has not given up on the ball, though. We've worked it to Gajic, and Gregorine is through. And finally, we take the lead in a game. Well, what a relief that is. Lots of work left to do to win it, but Gregorine is back as a poacher after a little bit of experimentation. And Kasnic gives it to Gajic, and two of the front three combine. Gregorine hits the back of the net, and we're 1-0 up in a must-win game. But I think we need a second goal, and on 35 minutes, is it the youngster Kaučić? Indeed it is. He has scored from a free kick already this season, and the youngster has done it again. He has curled an effort around the wall. This is a little bit more like it. We are 2-0 up against Mura now. And that's a beautifully struck free kick. And it gives us that little bit of daylight. Now, can we go on and keep a clean sheet and maybe score more goals? So early in the second half, we've got highlights once more. I would imagine Mura will have had a little bit of a chastening talk at halftime by their coach. And they're going to be looking for an early response in order to get back into the game. But it's us that have the ball as we've sent it over the top for Gregorine once more. And it's 3-0, although they are checking it. Maybe it's not 3-0. The VAR review is in effect. And it's been awarded. We've got the third goal. That should mean that we're good for a point as Gajic just drifts one over the top. Yes, we were a little direct in that play, but when Gregorine is racing away from defenders and finishing like that, we will not complain that our approach is a little bit more industrial. And just before the hour mark, we're hungry for more. It seems as though the changes that we've made tactically have had an impact. I think they're reviewing this one for offside once more, but this could be Gregorine's hat-trick. Did he go too early? I don't think he did. It's 4-0, and the tactical changes that we've made going into this game might mean that the old 4-3-3 might have won a reprieve. Certainly Gregorine in that poacher's role looks to be working well this afternoon. And Petek is playing a 6.6 in central defence. And I will tell you what, I will accept that as an average rating for our second centre-half. Let's let Mitrovic marshal things and play well. If I've got a player that will just come in and play a 6.6, I am delighted. And the other player that's having a good game is Matthias Krishnic, who's on a 7.0. So I'm afraid, Mr. Makovets, you can sit there and sulk for a little bit. We do have two players in midfield, though, and not performing as well as they might normally. Maybe that's because we've been bypassing them with some of our goals. But let's make a little change in that part of the pitch now. Another player that's doing pretty well in training that we're trying to develop is Alan Kotnik, another of our youngsters that came through in the first intake. He was a striker or a makeshift winger when he came through. I've rebranded him as a central midfielder because it does say that he's quite good technically. He's got a good first touch. He's decent in the air and he's fairly consistent as well. And we're going to play him as a central midfielder as he comes onto the pitch for today's game. I think the player that will make way is going to be Tigler, and we'll switch Kasnich and Kotnik around so that Kotnik can be the more attacking of the two players. And on 75 minutes, I think we might throw another one on. We'll give Denis Valencic a little bit of game time and see whether he can get back into some kind of form as well. Gajic and Kasnich have tried to feed Gregorine once more. And now it's Mura that have got the ball. Šipek has cut it out. He's playing as a playmaker, which I guess passes like that are what he's meant to be doing, but it was not well executed. Instead, Kotnik gets it to Gregorine, and he's headed over the bar. Let's be honest, I was never nervous. Were you nervous? You seemed nervous. I honestly thought that we would win this game all along. And now we've got to try and put a little bit of a run together. We need to climb up that table a little. Looking up the table, we're only 8 points off Bravo. I know 8 points is quite a lot of a gap to try and make up, but we need to try and push towards mid-table. Ideally, we'd love to qualify for European competition again next season because we've got facilities to build and that requires money.